Okay, hello Bio2. We're going to continue on with chapter 28. And now we're going to look at our specific groups of arthropods. So we got all their major characteristics. So now we're going to look at how, in fact, are they classified, so how are they put into different groups. So they're classified or put into different groups based on the number and structure of their body segments and appendages, and particularly being their mouth part. So that's going to be one big way that separates them apart, is their body segments and their mouth parts. And our three main groups of arthropods that we have are crustaceans, we have spiders and their relatives, and insects and their relatives. So those are our three main groups. So we're going to start with the crustaceans. So we're going to look at one of our distinguishing features. So crustaceans are primarily aquatic, so meaning they primarily live in the water, and they include things like crabs, shrimp, lobster, crayfishes, and what are known as barnacles. And again, those are an actual animal, not just a word SpongeBob says when he gets upset. And so some defining characteristics here of our crustaceans is they typically have two pairs of antennae, 2 or 3 body sections, and they also have chewing mouth parts that are called mandibles. So they have 2 pairs of antennae, we can see there. We have 2 body sections in this example, and we have our chewing mouth parts that are called the mandibles. And then the crayfish has a body plan that is typical of many crustaceans, so we're going to use this as our example to kind of see some of these anatomical structures or that make up the anatomy of our crustaceans. And so the anterior, or kind of our front portion, is known as the cephalothorax, and this is formed by the fusion of the head with the part of the body known as the thorax. So that area in brackets right there, that whole area, is known as the cephalothorax, and it's the anterior portion of our crustaceans, or in this example, the crayfish. And so a thorax is just a part that lies right behind the head, and it houses or holds most of the internal organs. So that's a function of the thorax. So the cephalothorax is the fusion of that part with the head. And then our abdomen is our posterior part of our body, so what we usually maybe call the tail. If any of us like to eat lobster, the lobster tail is actually a lobster abdomen, the posterior part of the body. And then another important structure is called the carapace, or carapace, and it's part of the exoskeleton that covers the cephalothorax. So it's going to lie pretty close to actually where the cephalothorax is, but it is actually going to cover it and protect the cephalothorax, so the carapace. And also in crustaceans, there's the first 2 pairs of appendages are always antennae. So there's the first 2 appendages at the anterior portion of the body are always antenna. And then our third portion, our third pair coming after the antenna, are going to be our mandibles. And the mandible is a mouth part that is adapted for biting and grinding food. So in the crustacean, or in that lobster that we have in our tank over there, there is a mouth part that is adapted for biting and grinding food. And then what is known as a decapod has what are 5 pairs of legs. So deca means 10, 5 pairs, so that means there's 5 times 2, so 10 legs total. And in crayfish, the first pair of legs are called chelicpeds, and if you look there, in our crayfish, the first pair of legs that are found here are going to be large claws that catch, pick up, crush, and cut their food. So our crayfish and our lobsters and our crabs, their first set of legs are always going to be their claws. And then behind these are our 4 pairs of walking legs. So you can see that very easily there with our difference between our claws and our walking legs. And then along the abdomen, or along their posterior portion, there are several pairs of what are known as swimmerets. And these are flipper-like appendages that are used for swimming. So they almost look like little minuscule legs that are always back there kind of flapping around, and they're called swimmerets, which are used for swimming. Pretty descriptive name there. And then the final abdominal segment is fused with a pair of paddle-like appendages to form a large, flat tail. So the very tip of that is actually the tail. We can't call that whole portion the tail, we have to call it the abdomen. So that's it for our first part of our first group of arthropods. Let me know if you have any questions.